Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's 3 o'clock in Rome. Actually, it's 1 minute past 3. So I think we're ready to start this webinar, this G-Local webinar. Thank you all for joining. I see other people are still joining. There were quite a few registrations for this exciting webinar on artificial intelligence. My name is Renata Mirulla. I am the facilitator of the EvalForward Community of Practice, which is jointly supported by the Rome-based agencies, FAO, WFP, IFAD, and CGIAR. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to Artificial Intelligence and Evaluation, Ethics, Tips, and Practical Usage. Some of you maybe have been to an earlier webinar we had in March, but this time this webinar for the G-Local week is richer and we have more speakers and more content. So I'm sure you will enjoy it. The webinar is recorded and we will send the recording to all registered participants, also to those who couldn't make it for this session. And we'll send also the presentation, so you will not miss anything. As usual, please use the chat for your questions. We will address them at the end of the 3 presentations. But let me now hand over to Emil, who will facilitate this session. Emil is a colleague here in the FAO Office of Evaluation. He is an evaluation analyst. He also collaborates with EvalForward. So over to you, Emil, to introduce the session and the speakers.
Thank you so much, Renata. So first, we would like to have a poll about your experience with artificial intelligence. So the first poll is: do you use artificial intelligence tools and software in your evaluations? If everything is all right, then now you should see the poll.
I see people are responding to the poll. I'll just wait a few seconds before closing it. So let us know if you are already using artificial intelligence tools in your evaluation work. Okay, I shall end the poll.
Now, so 54% of the participants have not yet experienced with AI. So let's go now to the second poll. So what do you think are the major ethical considerations for the use of AI? Which can be data protection, inclusion, biases, transparency, accountability, accuracy, or do no harm. This is a multiple choice poll. So thank you for your participation. Data protection seems to be the most ethical concern of AI. So with this being, I think we can end this poll. Yes. And then I would like to proceed with the introduction of the first presenter, Neha. She is the Communications, Knowledge Management, and AI lead of the UNFPA Independent Evaluation Office. She crafts strategies and spearheads initiatives that promote the use of evaluations for decision-making and accountability. So please, Neha, if you can, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil and Renata, and hello to everyone. I am Neha Karkara from the UNFPA Independent Evaluation Office, and I'm kickstarting this webinar with a story. This story is about how UNFPA is using Gen AI to power the evaluation function, how we are approaching this use of technology and where we are headed. And like the first poll question said, we were very curious to know if you are using AI or whether you are considering the use of AI. And there was almost a 50% divide. I hope the presentation this morning from UNFPA Experience particularly is able to cater to both sets of people. If you are already using AI, you are able to take away some lessons and something from UNFPA Experience to use AI in an ethical way much more and as well as mitigate any of the risks. And if you're considering the use of AI in evaluation, I also hope you have a few takeaways on how to approach using AI in a more ethical manner, in a more responsible manner in evaluation, particularly from a project management perspective as well. So with that, let's go forward. Next slide, please. So here is our journey. I would like to take you through how did we begin, and I'll talk a little bit about AI use cases in evaluation and how that became the ground upon which this journey is based on. Then what is our approach to using AI? And I talk a little bit about our new Gen AI powered evaluation strategy. And finally, where are we headed in the sense that how are we implementing this strategy? And I'll talk about two specific examples of two pilot cases where we are utilizing AI in a major centralized evaluation and also in a meta synthesis exercise. Okay, so going forward, next slide, please. How did we begin? So like a lot of us, in 2023, when there was an explosion of generative AI and of course ChatGPT came into the market and there was a great buzz, as you know, and we all of us are well aware of the excitement that was created in early last year. At the evaluation office at UNFPA, we were very keen to experiment with these AI tools. But at the same time, we were very cautious. We were like, okay, we want to use these tools, but where do we begin? So we started with a needs assessment, speaking to evaluators. So these were evaluation managers, evaluation specialists, evaluation team leaders, but also evaluation users, trying to understand within the evaluation life cycle, where were the pain points that could be optimized through the use of this technology. So we mapped about 30 use cases where AI could be potentially used to increase efficiency in evaluation, and I will talk a little bit about them. But at the same time, we were also exploring what AI solutions are there. Of course, there were several third-party solutions, but we were also looking at what were the UNFPA-approved solutions. Just as a background, UNFPA uses the Google Enterprise, and through our IT department, we were directed to use Gemini, at that time Bard, and also the Duet AI. So we were exploring a lot and trying to understand, but at the same time, we realized it's a very, very agile space. So if we looked at a particular solution, in 2 months' time, the features change, the risks around that tool changed, and we needed to keep up. This led us to understanding we needed a more deliberate approach on how we wanted to start using AI before actually starting to use a tool. Can we please go to the next slide, please? So a little bit about, I said that we mapped about 30 use cases for AI use and evaluation. These were the top 5 that came out. The first user need was using AI for information synthesis, and this is a little different to evidence synthesis, which is point 4. So for information synthesis, our users said we wanted to use AI to extract information in speedy ways that, for example, you could use in writing an evaluation TOR, an evaluation concept note, and so forth. And that was the first user need. The second was to initially write an evaluation report. Can we use AI responsibly and ethically to write the first draft of an evaluation report? Because that is a process which takes considerable time by the evaluation team. The third and very interesting user need was an inclusive dissemination of evaluation results. So to make sure that we actually reach out to our target audiences, including the key informants, in a way we communicate our evaluations in a way which are inclusive and accessible. And this was a pain point because, it can take a lot of time and effort and planning to do inclusive communication of evaluations. But now there are AI-enabled tools. So, for example, communicating evaluations in Braille or sign language or translating evaluation content for indigenous audiences. So this can be done much more easily. The fourth user need was on evidence synthesis, as like I already said, different to information synthesis. And the fifth top user need was on qualitative data analysis. Moving forward, please. So with this background and understanding where we want to use AI in evaluation, we wanted to set out a very deliberate roadmap on how we should use AI in evaluation. And this led to the genesis of a strategy for Gen AI powered evaluation function at UNFPA. I will also place the link for this in the chat after my presentation. The strategy was released last month. And also, as you can see, it's quite a pioneering strategy in the sense that it's one of its a kind sector-based strategies, in this case evaluation, which talks about not only on how we should go about using AI in evaluation, but what are the responsible and ethical implications and how do we mitigate risks. So the risk mitigation framework takes center stage in this evaluation strategy. And it also draws, like I said, on the AI use cases that that came forward in the needs assessment. And the key feature really of the strategy is that we are not using Gen AI for the sake of it. We are using Gen AI to optimize the evaluation process, to optimize the evaluation products, and the focus must be retained on ethical and responsible use. And if you were to read the strategy, you would also see that there is a great focus on achieving greater efficiency, effectiveness, and timeliness in evaluation through use of AI, and it also provides a results framework towards that end. Next one, please. So just going over a little bit on the challenges and the ethical and methodological and the organizational challenges that the strategy talks about. First and foremost, it focuses on upholding data protection and privacy. And in the poll that we just took prior to this presentation, that also, I think 80% of the users also said that that was one of the key ethical considerations that we must focus on. The strategy also talks about mitigating biases and hallucinations and what must be done towards that end. And at the same time, making sure that we're using AI, the AI results or the AI generated analysis is accurate and reliable. Further focusing on transparency and accountability, but also focusing on explainability. So if you're using AI in evaluation, our reports, our exercises must be able to explain to our users how AI was used, what was the methodology in layman terms. And finally, being cautious about over-reliance on Gen AI, with the idea being that, it's not one size fits all, it's neither is a silver bullet, it comes with risks and harms, and there has to be an approach where humans continue to be in the loop when we are using AI, and we are careful about only just relying on use of AI in evaluation. Next one, please. So this framework also aligns with the UNEG ethical principles for AI use and evaluation, which is under development. And you can see that the ethical principles align. When I talk about the pilot use cases for AI, I will also give a few examples on how we are upholding these ethical principles in practical ways. Next one, please. Okay, so, we talked a little bit about the ethical principles, but let's also talk about the strategic principles on how we can use AI in evaluation. So the first and foremost is that we must follow a demand-driven approach for Gen AI-powered evaluation. Like I said, let's not use AI only for the sake of it, but indeed to make sure that there is a pain point in the evaluation process that we are optimizing and increasing our efficiency towards. And also being open to the idea that if a non-AI solution is working better, then perhaps it is better to use the non-AI solution. So we are not using technology for its own sake, but we are making sure there is a value added. Next, we continue to uphold the quality and credibility in evaluation. As you might already know, there are several risks around making sure that the AI analysis is rigorous, the AI analysis is accurate and reliable. So at no point we must compromise the quality and the rigor of the evaluation. And in fact, this year at the UNFPA Evaluation Office, we have revamped our evaluation quality assurance and assessment system to make sure it takes into account that if an evaluation has used AI, there are certain quality considerations which are included in the evaluation assessment framework. And then, of course, adhering to ethical and human rights-based approach to Gen AI use in evaluation, that is making sure that, following human rights-based approaches, we do no harm and we make sure that no group is disadvantaged or excluded when we are using Gen AI in evaluation. Then further, we make sure that we diversify and innovate itself with Gen AI tools. And like I said, this is a very agile space. And there are constantly new tools and new features, new platforms that are available to all of us, perhaps also within our organizations, but also outside in the marketplace. So we constantly keep an eye for that, learn from them, and scale up accordingly. Next, we also maximize the use of evaluation with Gen AI. And this goes back to, the original objective of the strategy itself, that when we're using AI, one focus or one eye must be to improve the accessibility of evaluations, improve the timeliness of evaluations, and to make sure that we can use this technology to increase the utilization of evaluations. And finally, not everyone in the evaluation space may have the capacity or the skills to utilize AI in its entirety. So it's very important as we continue to use this technology or to introduce this technology in evaluation, we also upskill our colleagues, we upskill also the evaluation community, especially in the global south, so that tech-enabled evaluation is able to permeate at all levels. Next slide, please. So just very quickly on our implementation roadmap from the strategy, we are taking a phased approach to Gen AI adoption and deployment. And the underlying principle for that is that while we are taking bold steps with the 2 pilots that I will talk about in using AI in evaluation, but we are not rushing in. The underlying principle for the adoption and deployment is, again, is there a user demand? Is there a real need for using the technology? Are we really optimizing the process? That these two are the 2 main considerations. And second, like I said, that AI is not a silver bullet. And AI is also much more than a conversational chatbot like ChatGPT. AI is very, very wide. So maybe there is a marketplace tool that does not fulfill our need. So is there a possibility to develop custom Gen AI solutions for evaluation? And of course, this particular roadmap is very specific to UNFPA, and if other agencies are seeing this, they would need to apply it to their context. Third, having a very deliberate approach towards change management and because often we can face, there will be colleagues who are very eager to use the new technology and experiment, but there might also be hesitations based on risks and harm, which is quite justified. But at the same time, we need to communicate with our colleagues within the evaluation sphere, as well as the evaluation users on the change management process as we bring in a new technology in evaluation. Which moves us to the next point that we must have an adaptive approach. As we continue, even in our pilots, we've started to use one particular tool, for example, which I'll talk about, but keeping in mind that tools change, new tools come up all the time. We need to learn from the current experience and be quite deliberate if it works or not, and then scale up, in an incremental way. Which leads me to the last point, that we are in this for the long haul. We are not using the technology for the sake of it, but we want to see in the long term, the use of this technology is sustainable. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how we are implementing this technology and how we are taking forward this strategy, upholding ethical principles in AI use. The tool that we are using for 2 of our pilots is AI Lies. Both the pilots are focused on qualitative analysis at the top level. AI Lies is a market-based tool. I will also put the link in the chat if you are interested. We are piloting this in two areas. The first pilot is in the evaluation of the UNFPA strategic plan, and the second pilot is in the interagency meta-synthesis exercise. What I'd like to highlight here that AI Lies, being a market-based tool, they do have a free version and they do have an enterprise version. Our experience is with the enterprise plan, which also comes with support of a data scientist. We use their offline and online tools. And this approach was quite deliberate based on also what we learned in the strategy development process, foremost being that we needed skills in our evaluation team that understood this technology and can help the evaluation team use this technology. So we welcome the support of the data scientists that came with this tool. Next slide, please. Okay, so just on the pilot of AI use and evaluation for the UNFPA strategic plan. So what is our use case? We took 75 CPDs, country program documents, under our current strategic plan, and we took country program documents, 75 of them, from the previous strategic plan. And now we want to do a qualitative analysis around, do the current set of country program documents include the strategic shifts and accelerators from the strategic plan? And if they do, to what extent do they focus on it? I would not go into the pilot results because that verification process is still needs to be concluded in our office. We will have it in a few weeks. But sorry, if you could just please go back to the slide, I'll quickly, I will wrap it up. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so in this use case, there are top 5 things I would like to highlight here. Before we actually started with the pilot, we made sure that ethical AI use clauses were included in contracts of the AI company, and they were included in the contracts of the consultants working on this project. The ethical AI use clauses, if you are interested to have a look, they are included in the annex of the strategy, so you can find them there. Our key focus to mitigate the risk around accuracy and reliability and biases and hallucination was to make sure human and AI collaborated at a very deep level. So for example, when we were developing the conceptual framework for this qualitative analysis, it was the AI company together with the evaluation team that tailored the conceptual framework in a way that would be usable for a machine. And let me give you an example here. The conceptual framework talked about, one of the questions it talked about was around normative work. So do the country program documents have an increased focus on normative work? So for humans, if they were analyzing this, it may be quite clear, but for the machine, when we did a sample analysis, it was not clear. It was not able to understand what exactly would be normative work, possibly a jargon even for the large language model. So the conceptual framework needed to unpack that and define that for the machine. So are we talking about upstream policy work? Are we talking about policy advocacy or policy influence? So we needed to unpack that a little bit more. So based on like 3 sample runs, we needed to refine the conceptual framework. And at each sample run and each analysis run, the human team were verifying the results, which were fed back to the AI model. The AI model was subsequently trained on the feedback that came from the humans to get the final analysis. And lastly, I think one of the challenges that we did face, that even though that the machine was able to, to some extent pick up the nuances, the human verification was paramount because the emotional intelligence and the nuances that were picked up by the humans was getting missed by the machine. So it needed to be a collaborative at the end. And finally, data protection is a point I'd like to underscore again. This was the first pilot that we started with. The data set we provided to the company was external documents. So all CPDs are available on the UNFPA website. So we made sure we started this process, making sure that there was no internal information that we were using, since this was a pilot and we were very cautious about, what data was being used for AI analysis. Next one, please. We also piloted AI Lies. It's currently ongoing in the interagency meta-synthesis of evaluation reports, focusing on 2 themes, youth education and youth employment, to advance the UN Youth Strategy. So there are two parts to this pilot. First is report extraction, and the second is coding and synthesis work. So the coding and synthesis work is still taking place right now, but the report extraction is completed, and I'd like to share, just a top level view of that. We started with, putting together an inclusion criteria for the report extraction, and we started with a keyword search. And from 46 publicly available evaluation databases of UNEC agencies, we were able to distill 1,350 reports. Now, this is quite a large data set. Here, we use the AI model from AI Lies to extract further 250 reports. Based on human verification, that is, the team of our consultants and the broader team, they verified this sample and it came to 97% accuracy, which is a a good number. And considerably, we can see that the amount of time put together towards this extraction is less, but we'll be also looking at the efficiency gain a little bit more once the pilot is completed. But the final data set I would like to add, it doesn't have 250 reports, it does have 300. And this, like, I would like to underscore is also the reason why we need to have human verification, because during human verification, it was determined that there were few reports which were actually not uploaded to the evaluation databases and needed to be manually added. So just underscoring the human in the loop a little bit more here. But to undertake the analysis of these 250 reports, it was also very helpful that the AI model provided some tools for human verification. So apart from extracting the 250 reports, the model also provided us summaries of beneficiaries, interventions, key findings, and also verbatim quotes. So this greatly supported the human check as well. And finally, like the previous pilot, we also worked together with the AI company to define the inclusion criteria and the analysis framework that supported the use of the machine in this pilot. Next one, please. Okay, so I'm coming to an end of my presentation, but I'd just like to recap in my last slide a few practical considerations for evaluation managers and also for those who are interested to start this journey. What have we learned? And perhaps this is useful for you as a takeaway. At the outset of the project, it's important to set up a team that does have AI capacities, and this can vary within the team. So in our case, like I said, we went with the AI-lies model where we had support of the data scientists. And it is possible to put together a team, in different ways, and I would encourage you to do that. Second, simply in terms of project management, if you're setting this up, it's very important to factor in the time that it takes to develop the analytical framework that is fit for AI use. Because in both my examples, like I mentioned, this was, a considerable time-taking process. So must factor that in the project timeline. And as you go into the project, at various points, it's important also to upskill the staff and the team that are working on it. And as an example, at the UNFPA office, last year we conducted a prompt engineering training also for our staff. That time it was on Google Bard, but incrementally keeping the conversation and the idea of upskilling on AI quite active with the team. Again, talking about time management, it is very important to factor in time for reliability checks and accuracy checks, and also setting up the work in a way that the AI use can support this human check. Like talking about my last example, it highlighted that. And finally, do make sure that your evaluation reports or exercises where AI is used clearly provide a disclaimer that indeed AI was used in the methodology, and also make sure that AI use is explained well in your evaluation report and evaluation exercise. This does increase the credibility of your evaluation results. And finally, like I said, we are not using AI for the sake of it. We are using AI to increase efficiencies and effectiveness of evaluation. So we must make sure that we are tracking this efficiency gain, and based on that, we upscale the use of our tools. With that, I come to an end. Thank you very much, and I will place the links in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha. That was really, really interesting. Thank you, and congrats also for the UNFPA Evaluation Office for developing this AI strategy. Thank you also for the tools that you shared, such as the AI that is being used in a meta synthesis. And thank you also for sharing some tips for the ethical use of AI and for sharing some practical considerations for the evaluation manager. Thank you. That has been very interesting. There are some questions in the chat. Thank you for raising these questions, but we will address the questions after the last presentation. Let's go now to the second presentation, which is presented by Frederica. Federica is an evaluation officer at WFP Office of Evaluation. She leads initiatives to make evaluation evidence systematically accessible and available throughout the organization, enhancing learning and decision-making, and she is actively involved in the development of an AI evidence mining solution. Federica, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you for this introduction, Emil, and thank you, Neha, for the very insightful presentation. We are not as far as UNFPA, so yes, my presentation will focus more towards the design and conceptualization of our project. So the Office of Evaluation in WFP is leading on the development as well on an artificial intelligence solution for evidence mining. And today, I'd really like to provide a brief update on the project, including the progress that we've made so far, where we stand at the moment, and just generally some observations on the risks and limitations that of this technology that we were able to observe until now. So next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, just to take you a step back, so there's really growing demand for evidence generation across the World Food Programme in recent years. And while there's been considerable progress in the use of evidence at the organizational level, there's still, we feel, really important hindrances to using it in a more cross-cutting and thematic manner. And the processes that we currently have in place to retrieve evidence and explore and summarize them, I'd like to make specific reference to summaries of evidence, evaluation synthesis, and so forth. They are still entirely manual at the moment. So the vision for the Office of Evaluation that we have is to develop a solution using AI to facilitate the quick mining of evidence within the reports that we produce and to generate insights. So what are some of the key objectives of this project? First, to inform decisions on WFP programs more effectively and increase the use of knowledge generated by the evaluations. To develop, of course, an application that can be also replicable and replicated beyond the evaluation, maybe throughout the creation of reusable assets, and more widely to accelerate the information retrieval, pattern identification, and dissemination of the information. Next slide, please. So the solution will be developed in 3 sequenced phases, as presented in the diagram. We're currently in phase 1, which is really focused on the text preparation and developing the information retrieval, which is the primary feature of our project. Then to ensure that the solution is scalable and replicable, and to make an informed assessment of what is the best platform on where to host the solution, which is where we are now, and I'll get into that in a moment, it's going to be developed as a pilot in its first stages. Then some of the key deliverables that we aim to achieve by the end of this year are an overall architecture document explaining the solution development, the automatic classification of our evaluation documents and the tagging, the semantic search solution, of course, and a well-documented of the testing of the solution and of its performance, because we're going to test the pilot, of course, and this is going to begin precisely this week. And then to develop also training and documentation for the users. In terms of solution deployment, we're looking to launch something by the end of 2024. And when I say launch something, is that the first part of this project will focus on the semantic search. So question to the system and exact text passage retrieval. So it is not the generative part, which is actually phase 2 of our process. So in 2025, we'll move into phases 2 and 3. So phase 2 will explore the development. Oh, I don't see the presentation any longer. Great. No, next slide. Phase 2 will explore the development of other features, so identification of patterns, summarization, and generative AI, as I said before. And Phase 3 will integrate our recommender system to facilitate tailored dissemination, providing right information to the right users at the right time, hopefully according to user preference. So here I'd like to make a practical example. If I'm a program officer in Burkina Faso responsible for nutrition programming, then I shall receive and I should be automatically notified when there is an evaluation or a summary of evidence or a synthesis that speaks to the topic of interest, and any other topic, of course, that the user would have signed up to. So this is really what we'd like to aim towards. Next phase. Oh, sorry, I'd like to maybe just emphasize that we're starting simple and small, but we're thinking big. I know this is a big claim, but I think it's important to say this. We're now focusing on WFP evaluation evidence, but our aim is to possibly in the future expand to evaluations from other agencies as well, hoping to connect it with the wider evidence base. So we have one single entry point for users. Next slide, please. So what have we done so far? And when I look at this slide, I think of all the work that was completed in 2023. So to start, we've consulted. We've consulted with many UN agencies, international entities, WFP divisions, such as the technology division, the innovations, and the specific programmatic units that are very keen on having this solution to map what are the other systems available, what are the requirements, and to identify potential opportunities for synergies, but also, and most importantly, to align to the existing standards and any machine learning strategies. Then the project gained the endorsement internally of WFP's technology division to proceed. We've been advised by a senior digital transformation and AI expert on more sort of technical aspects, technical and strategic aspects related to the exploration of different interface options, what are some of the external providers available, and to help us in conceptualize the solution. We also perform demo testing of some of off-the-shelf ready-made solutions, such as Deep Cloud, for example, to see the extent to which the text query and retrieval was proving correct. So we tested something, but it was off-the-shelf, not tailor-made. And then one important feature, of course, of last year was the definition of the solution. What is it that we wanted to achieve? What were the requirements that we needed to set up this project, which entailed document pre-processing, automatic classification, a future proofing that would help us then scale up the project. Next slide. Thank you. So where are we now? These past few months, we've been quite busy. We've developed the first prototype of the solution on the back end, and with the support of a data scientist, who's also leading on the parsing and the coding of the reports, and is collaborating with other units in WFP in charge of some of the technical aspects. So that's done. We've put together a set of testing criteria to be able to assess the accuracy, the relevance, and the speed and the retrieval of the solution, the pilot solution, which I mentioned before. And we are now precisely beginning to test the different solutions that we have available. So we've moved from off the shelves, which decided not to go forward with, and we are now testing our solution through the Google Cloud platform, and we'll soon be testing also through the Palantir artificial intelligence platforms. These platforms are part of WFP's recently launched AI sandbox. What is an AI sandbox? Now, I don't want to go into the technicalities of this, but I think it's important to outline that we've been waiting for this because the sandbox is a collaborative and a safe environment for the World Food Programme to experiment and pilot any AI initiatives before their broader scale-up and implementation. So this is where we are. And we're also beginning to develop key performance indicators to be able to measure and report on the metrics, such as accuracy, efficiency, user satisfaction, when we'll be deploying the solution. Thank you. Next slide. So yeah, I want to share just some overall words of reflection from trying to build a customized solution with using sort of not trying to build a customized, but using the off-the-shelf solutions that use large language models against, yeah. So basically, these are programs that recognize text and generate text based on different processes. And LLMs, large language models, I feel, understand the world from a very wide and general perspective, as they've been trained on this type of data, and they don't really understand the reality, I think, in the same way as we do. So when we tested, we didn't end up getting an accurate response to our needs. And when I say our needs, is specifically I speak on behalf of the World Food Program evaluation function. So for example, I'd like to just flag one example on social protection. When we look for social protection, the large language models that are in the solutions that we know of, such as ChatGPT or other off-the-shelf ones, may probably understand social protection as it was first maybe implemented, or such as in the UK and in France, and not so much in the same way as we do in a humanitarian organization such as the World Food Program. So the second point is really much related to the first, is that we have sort of a conceptual issue, which is the bias a little bit on which these systems are built on. So it's sort of the Western semantics as they've been, trained and used on the internet. So yeah, these are some of the limitations. And I would just want to say that the off-the-shelf solutions very often are made to apply to many potential needs, and therefore may end up being much more costly than what you actually need, which is sometimes more specific and particular. So it's very important, I think, to think about what your needs are before sort of building your customized solution. And then, lastly, I'm going to conclude with this slide. So it's been taken from a meeting that was held internally in the World Food Program to discuss the various use cases that are being considered across the organization for building AI automated solutions. So the Office of Evaluation is not the only one which is going ahead with such a solution. There are many others, such as logistics, finance, etc. And it was very interesting and relieving in a way to see that the risks that are being discussed in a wide organizational level, whereby it was noted that the deployment of AI across the sensitive operations of that WFP carries, the humanitarian, carries significant risks that cannot be overlooked. So this is really an organizational matter. And as WFP is investing in AI solutions, it is cognizant of the risks posed by AI technologies, such as, for example, those outlined there. Data breach to misinformation and disinformation. And this is outlined also in the recently AI data strategy that was launched. We already see how AI can impact us in the terms of bias and discrimination, risks, mistrust, and reputational damage. And on security breach, on the right side, you can see some of the articles that have come out even in the past month or so that reflect the risks of AI across the different sectors, not just us, from airline industry to media and so on. So the meeting concluded on this element by saying that it's really our role to be aware of the risks. And it's in our efforts to make sure that our assessments and our criteria when we build these systems are done in a way that we can mitigate these risks and manage them as they arise in the organization. And I think Neha pointed out, and I was really glad to see what is it that they've put in place to mitigate them. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Federica. That was very interesting. Thank you for sharing the insights of this project. Looking forward to the next phases of the project. Seems very interesting. Good luck with that. And thank you also for mentioning the risks of AI. So yeah, that was very interesting. Let's go now to the last but not the least presentation by Rami. Rami is an evaluation analyst at the Office of Evaluation of FAO. He is the co-chair of Eval Youth MENA and the board of the member of the Lebanese Evaluation Association. He has been experimenting with the use of AI in various evaluations. Over to you, Rami. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil. I know we're quite short on time, so I promise I will be very quick on that presentation. I might skip some points. but I'll be happy to reply later on to anybody. So with that, let me quickly go through the disclaimer. I won't read it, just the last point, which is the responsible and ethical use of AI demands awareness of its limitations and a commitment to complementing automated processes with human judgment and expertise. This is like a very important point. So my presentation would be more like a storytelling, and it's an off-the-shelf how you could use some free AI tools that will help you in the evaluation. I won't be speaking about any FAO strategy and stuff, hopefully next time. For this, I'm complementing my colleague's presentation with some tips and tricks on practical usage of AI in evaluation. So the context, we have Remy, who's an evaluator. He's been assigned as a team member to work the evaluation of the project improving livelihoods of apple farmers in the province of Kurdistan. You'll see it's a new country I invented. And he sits in a team meeting with his team leader. He meets with him to discuss the workload. His team leader requests from him to do a desk review of existing documents, analysis of types of apple received per farmer, and to write a short case study in a very short span of time, a day. So he has to submit everything by a day. I mean, before AI, all of this would have been like a big hassle. But I mean, thanks to AI, Remy is able to work quickly. So first, for desk review, he checks what are the available articles about apple farming, and he uploaded to an AI tool for qualitative research. For this, I think Neha already presented the tool ALIs. Just to point out, there is ALIs Lite, which allows you to upload up to 3 documents and use it. So it's a free version, this Lite one. And the example that will be shown in the next slide, it's down there. I have it. You could retrieve it later on and compare it. Let me put play. You're all watching the video. So Apple, I called the document Apple and uploaded it on ALIs Lite. So ALIs gives you 4 types of analysis. You could summarize, ask a specific question, conduct a thematic analysis, and compare viewpoints across documents. The mouse will move. So for this one, I asked it to summarize, and then in the summarize, you could choose either an essay or bullet points. I asked it to do an essay, and then there's optional instruction. You could choose a language of response, length of response, and instructions regarding your desired response. So here I'm showing what are the options. For the length, I asked it to do a medium, and then I asked it to focus on antibiotics, and then it's submit. Let's say it was very superficial, there were some good analysis, but yeah, in general, it's always good to add your own judgment to it. But it's a good tool to give you a good push and moving forward. So the second, Remy decides to do the analysis, and the shared analysis by one of the country offices there or someone, they give him data in an Excel format, which is a complete mess. And it's, so I gave an example on the left. It's the type of apples. There's Granny Smith, Gala, Honeycrisp, and Macintosh. And there's more than 1,000 rows with the same thing. And the goal is to find the percentage of the Gala received by each farmer and the average of it. Of course, before AI, I mean, I would have went on through Google, search how to extract it or try to do it manually. But now there's a solution, which is you ask ChatGPT to find a quicker solution. Just state the type or similar type of data set and ask the chatbot to provide with a formula to extract the percentage of Gala. So here is the text, the questions. You just give an example to ChatGPT. Of course, you could change a bit the names and stuff if you don't trust it. It gives you directly the formula. You apply the formula, you get the percentage of the Gala, and then of course you do the average or simply ask ChatGPT. This presentation will be shared with all participants, so later on, if you want to see more details, you could see the text. And then there's the writing. So once the information is analyzed, it's time to write the case study report. You ask Claude AI to write a case study. It's also one of the other tools. I'd like also to point out it assists well in generating compelling and accurate reports with ease, but it's fundamental to know its limits, generic writing, and a lot of mistakes. And it's very important to use one's handwriting and skills and judgments. So my example here, I don't know if you see it, is that I asked Claude to write a 1-page case study about distribution of apples on Kurdistan. I specified that 30% of the distributed apples are Gala variety with no pesticides used, and the recipients were happy and able to cultivate their fruits every season. I don't know why or how I've never mentioned the saplings. Somehow, Claude gave me in the first year over 50,000 pesticide-free Gala apple saplings distributed to 375 family orchards. There's also farmer Kadir Salim. I don't know who's that farmer, but still Claude managed to put it in. So yeah, the lesson is still the same. It's good as a startup, as a writing, as a skeleton, but then later on, human judgment still stays as a priority. And then submission after the review of data and writing, there's the submission to the supervisor. I'd like to also point out that all pictures in the story were AI generated. However, I didn't give an example because this one is a paid tool. So, and that's it. I hope 6 minutes I went through. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rami. That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing these practical tools. They are very useful for all of us. So there are various questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we are a bit running out of time, so we are sorry for this, but we are not able to answer to all of the questions. There are several questions regarding verification of data from AI. So perhaps I was wondering if Neha or Rami or Federica can briefly mention about this. There are various questions on the chat about this. Neha, would you have any idea on how to verify the data from AI?
Yes, so thank you, Emil. But I'm also trying parallelly to answer some of the questions around this in the chat. But my top level message here is from our two pilots. Just to reiterate that before running the full AI model on the entire data set, each time we started with a smaller data set. So, in the first case, when we were using AI Lies for the qualitative analysis and the evaluation of the UNFPA strategic plan, the total data set was 150 documents, but we started with 10. And and starting with a small number, running the analysis helped us, one, to refine the conceptual framework as was needed, to run on the machine, but also gave the humans a sense of what was the accuracy level, what was the reliability level, and how they should start structuring their next level of verification. So again, also in the interagency metasynthesis, this is also the approach that we've taken. We're starting with a small sample, in this case of 15 reports. The idea being that this is very much a pilot exercise. So we are absolutely mindful that reliability of the AI analysis and the tool has to be paramount. So in the subsequent analysis run, we did have the consultants and the team go through the reports to make sure that the analysis was accurate, and we were able to build confidence in these tools. So this was one. I think it's actually also very good recognition, because one thing that when we say we want efficiency gain in using AI, we are also mindful. So do the humans have to conduct the entire analysis manually to be able to verify against the AI generated analysis? And if we actually do that, is there an efficiency gain? But since we are at a pilot stage, we are at the moment doing it because we need to be sure that in this very experimental stage that we are in, we are actually confident that the tool really works. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then another question, perhaps this is a question for Federica. It's a question from Gordon. Gordon asks, from your experience until now, can we concretely say that the benefits of AI outweigh the risk? And so what's your take on this?
Well, I cannot, I'm not sure the question is for me, but I'm very happy to come in as a segue to what Neha has said. And I wanted to share an experience, and maybe this would be helpful for Gordon to know what we are doing, because we know how because we know what are the risks in the use of AI, especially in relation to all the elements that were discussed here. And also practically in terms of accuracy of the evidence, right? That we would then especially publish in our evaluation products and reports. At the moment, what we are doing to anticipate and to understand what are the benefits and where is it that generative AI can add value and efficiency to our products. We are testing. I am managing an evaluation synthesis on WFP's collaboration and management of cooperating partners at the moment. This is being externally outsourced to an evaluation team who is undertaking the synthesis work in a manual manner, so old-fashioned review of reports against an analytical framework. On the side, we are testing an large language model, an LP generative solution against one of the synthesis questions. And I cannot tell you the outcome of that yet, but we are doing it purposely to see, was it more efficient? Was the tool able to generate findings and evidence that we were not able to catch with the human eye? And to what extent is the tool accurately understanding the questions and the semantics of the words, and therefore capturing the nuances that are described in the report? So I think that before embarking into something, perhaps this could be a useful exercise to lead. And maybe next time in another forum, I'm happy to share the outcome of this process, which we're also very much looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Federica. There are several questions, so perhaps we will do this, well, let's do it until 4 and 5. So like, let's extend it with 5 minutes in order to answer to all of the questions. Well, we will not be able to answer to all of them, but let's try to tackle some more questions. Perhaps a question for Rami. There are some other questions on the tools of AI. Rami, could you briefly expand a bit on that? So which AI tools would you recommend, and why? Thank you.
Thanks, Emil, for the question. Which AI tool? I mean, I'm not doing any ad for any tool. I mean, each tool has its own positives and negatives, and it really depends towards what output or outcome you want to use it, and then it becomes, I can't recommend one. I can recommend practical usages of some. I can say some are better than others, but still there's not one that stands out, that I would recommend. I'm sorry if my answer was broad, but in general, I wouldn't recommend something specific.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much, Rami. I was wondering if there are any other questions. Please, I think we have some more time for questions. So you can please unmute yourself, and then we can try to answer some questions. So now to the audience, could you briefly, if you have a question, please unmute yourself.
So I have one question. I was just wondering, what is the accuracy of this particular model over other models? Like, you might have tried 2 or 3 models, right? So is it, you choose it because of experience, or is it, you choose it, just because one of the models was performing better than the other model? Thank you.
Should I take this question, Emil? Madhavan, thank you for this question, and it's a very good recognition that, and also your idea on trying to understand that how are we going towards selecting these models also for our pilots. And like I said, in UNFPA's experience, we did start with a solution exploration study when we were also looking at use cases. To us, one thing remained paramount. The first was, before actually even on accuracy and reliability, it was data protection. To what extent were third-party models, and at that time, we, and also at the moment, we don't have an inbuilt in-house model available for qualitative data analysis. So if you were looking at third-party models, how well do they align with our IT guidelines, particularly on data protection? And there was quite a lot of opaqueness in external models on giving us the confidence that our data would not be used to train their models, or the data would not be leaked, and so on. So already at that stage where data protection and privacy was concerned, a lot of the available models were already out of our list. The next stage was, of course, on the accuracy. And AI Lies was chosen because, in the sample runs that we had conducted, it did perform better than the others. But another key factor over here was, what is our capacity in our office to be able to use these models? Do we have a team that can work well with these AI tools? And we put together a team that can collaborate using an AI tool and human expertise. So in our case, it was also very useful to be able to have access to a data scientist that this model was providing, that was able to run offline and online models as they provide, as well as have a deep sense of the evaluation field. And the AI, I mean, again, like Rami says, we are not advertising a model, and we are not saying this is the only model and this is the only model, the other agencies or specialists should go towards. We are only sharing, the pilot that UNFPA is doing right now. So like I said, yes, so the capacity of the data scientists to work with our team was also a key factor. And also the AI company's willingness to abide by the ethical principles. So before we actually started, I had mentioned in my presentation, we had the AI company sign a specific clause which said that they would uphold data privacy. They would be, they would take accountability for the verification of results. They would be willing to work with the team on the accuracy and reliability. They would work on explainability of the model. They would provide us a clear methodology and remove the opaqueness in understanding how this is to be used. So once these ethical principles and parameters were well understood, together with the idea that the tool can provide to a large degree accurate results, we narrowed on this tool. And just to say that the pilot is not complete, we will have a few more weeks before we can actually have, like measured results to say this works or this doesn't work or it works with conditions. So that information is not available at the moment. Thank you.
A quick question on the second part. The one I was wondering, like for cyber, you could have always chosen anonymization, right? Because data anonymization is like very common in even in AI field. Whenever what is it, competition hosting websites like Kaggle host data, they will go around anonymizing things. Otherwise, it will be a complete mess. Putting original data, right? So we could have used one of those techniques, to save our what to say, privacy and all that stuff, or one of the pets method actually. So did we follow one of those methods, or or we took like off-grid computer and one with the data air gap system, and we played with that actually. So at least in this instance, it looks like an air gap system, but anonymization would have more, it could be more effective for parallel servers and all that stuff.
So,
Just a thought. Thank you.
yes. No, thank you, Madhavan, for that idea. So we had to tailor the selection of the tool also based on what were the pilots going to be on. So in our case, actually, that the pilots that we are using in both cases, in the interagency meta synthesis as well as the evaluation of the strategic plan, our data sets actually are externally publicly available documents at the moment. So whether to use anonymization or other modalities that may come into play when we have a different kind of data set, when there is personal or identifiable or other sensitive information. But at the moment, since our data set already is externally available, some of our needs were a little bit different. But having said that, the AI model, I mean, as part of the contract, will be deleting the trained models that they have on our data, and that is, one of the methods that we have chosen to go forward in this pilot to uphold, whatever data protection and privacy needs we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I would kindly ask both Neha, Federica, and Rami if you would have a half a minute of time to respond briefly to some other questions that were posted in the chat that were not being responded. Would any of you have any other responses to those questions? And after that, we can conclude this session.
No, but Emil, also couldn't we later on, if there's any extra question, be sent to Eval Forward and we could open up a discussion? And
yes, for sure.
I'm afraid in half a minute we'll not be able to respond to everyone on the.
Yes.
Do we have a public GitHub for Eval Forward?
I'm not sure I understood. A public?
Public GitHub code repository, as well as to
No.
publish models as well as data, because anyway we are publishing results. Maybe GitHub and all that this thing, right? Data code as well as data models as well, right?
No, we don't have that. Unfortunately, we have a community of practice Eval Forward. I'll just take this chance from your question to retake the word here, because we passed a few minutes after 4. It was a very rich session, a lot to say, a lot to discuss. So thank you for staying with us over 1 hour. I just want to invite you to look at the Eval Forward website for other upcoming sessions on AI and other topics, and to register to the community of practice. And I also want to share there are 2 more events coming up on artificial intelligence. I'll just post them in the chat. Okay, there's one next week on the 11th of June. We will have also Nea presenting there, but also other speakers from UNDP and other organizations on artificial intelligence in evaluations. So next week. And there is another event that will be on the 4th of July, and this will be for the Francophone community. So it will be in French, organized by Eval Forward and the Réseau Francophone de l'Évaluation. So follow on Eval Forward. We don't have the link for that yet, but I'm sure you will be interested, those of you who are Francophone, also to follow this. So with that, thank you all. Thank you to the speakers, especially for sharing their experiences. Thank you to Emil for facilitating, and Luigia for being behind the scenes of this webinar. So thanks to all, and I'll share the recordings and the presentations, as I said, with all of you. So see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.